What steps have you taken to return Mr. Abrego-Garcia to allow him to get due process?
Abrego-Garcia is in his home country.
What steps have you taken?
If your continued advocacy for him were to...
I'm not advocating for him. I'm advocating for a court order, Madam Secretary. The court order says that you must take steps to follow the court order. You are here under oath. What steps have you taken to return Mr. Abrego-Garcia pursuant to this court order?
Congressman Goldman just cornered Secretary Noem in a way she could not escape, and the moment ignited the entire hearing. What began as a simple civics question shattered into one of the most explosive confrontations yet.
I now recognize Mr. Goldman for 5 minutes questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to go back to Mr. Kilmar Abrego-Garcia's case, Madam Secretary. But my first question for you is a pretty simple one. It's basic civics. Which branch of government does the Constitution give the authority to interpret what the law is, the judiciary or the executive branch?
Sir, going forward, the interpretation of the law, you make the laws in this body. The judicial branch makes sure that they have integrity and they're applied properly to individuals.
So I'm just going to take that as the judiciary branch. Now, let's focus for a second on what the judiciary branch has said about this case. We know the Supreme Court has said 9-0 that, notwithstanding your statements under oath here today, that Mr. Kilmar Abrego-Garcia was afforded due process, he was in fact not afforded due process, because then if he were, you would have seen the withholding order that did not permit him to be deported to El Salvador. Now you allege, and I guess the Attorney General alleges, that he's a member of MS-13. That may very well be the case. And if he is, now that that is a foreign terrorist organization, certainly the immigration laws would allow him, and in fact require him, to be deported. I certainly would support that. But the problem that we have here is what you allege, what Ms. Green alleges, what the Attorney General alleges, is not the judiciary. You don't get to decide whether or not he is an MS-13 member. And you don't have to take my word for it, because Judge Wilkinson, a Fourth Circuit judge, very conservative, addressed this argument. He said, the government asserts that Abrego-Garcia is a terrorist and a member of MS-13. Perhaps, but perhaps not. Regardless, he is still entitled to due process. If the government is confident in its position, it should be assured that position will prevail in proceedings to terminate the withholding of removal order. Will you commit right now to give Mr. Abrego-Garcia that process where you can prove your allegation that he is a member of MS-13?
Congressman, that judge that you just quoted did not say he was not a member of MS-13. Who did say that he was a member of MS-13 was law enforcement officers that encountered this individual.
Yeah, he knows that. This is a Fourth Circuit judge. He knows all of what the evidence is, and he's saying if that evidence... So you're not going to commit to follow this order? You won't commit to follow this court order?
By the way, he identified
Madam Secretary, I reclaim my time. Stop filibustering. Stop filibustering.
By gang members of MS-13.
Will you give Mr. Abrego-Garcia the due process that the Supreme Court and Judge Wilkinson has required you to give him?
Abrego-Garcia is an El Salvador resident who is in his home country. If he were to come back to this country, he would be immediately removed again.
How do you know?
He has received and been treated appropriately,
so
sir, and he is not.
How can you say he's been treated appropriately if the Supreme Court has ruled 9-0? 9-0 that he hasn't been treated appropriately? Why is your opinion better and have more authority than the Supreme Court?
Investigators, 2 judges, an immigration court that all said he was MS-13 and was removed from this country.
But you understand, that is you saying that. That is you saying that.
That is them saying that. This
no.
investigators and law
that is
enforcement
you making that determination.
Against him. If you don't
the
trust
court has considered all that. The judge has considered all that, Madam Secretary. And if you would be quiet, because I'm reclaiming my time, You are not following this court order. But let's focus on the court order, because this opinion also says that to facilitate, which the Supreme Court is requiring, is an active verb. It requires that steps be taken. What steps have you taken to return Mr. Abrego Garcia to allow him to get due process?
Abrego Garcia is in his home country.
What
If he were to come
steps
back,
have
your
you
advocacy-
taken?
If your continued advocacy for him were to...
I'm not advocating for him.
Yes, you
I'm
are.
advocating for a
Absolutely.
court order, Madam
Gone to the
Secretary.
mat for this
The
man
court
who
order
has terrorized
says
people
that
in
you
traffic,
must take
human
steps
beings.
to follow the court order. You are here under oath. What steps have you taken to return Mr. Abrego Garcia pursuant to this court order?
It's got to be extremely discouraging to be one of your constituents. To see you fight for a terrorist like this and not fight for them is extremely alarming to me.
I'm fighting for
sure it
due
is to
process,
constituents as
and
well.
that's under the Constitution,
Gentleman's
and you
time
should
has
fight too for due
expired.
process.
The gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize...
What Gleeman exposed in that exchange is something far deeper than political disagreement. He exposed a cabinet secretary who does not believe she is bound by the Constitution or the judiciary at all. His questioning was simple, foundational, almost elementary. Who interprets the law in the United States? The executive branch or the judiciary? And yet, Secretary Noem could not give a clean answer, because acknowledging that the courts hold that authority would mean acknowledging she violated a Supreme Court order. Gleeman walked her step by step through the facts. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously, 9-0, that Mr. Abrego Garcia had not received due process. A conservative Fourth Circuit judge said the same. Both courts made clear that accusations are not evidence and that DHS cannot simply label someone MS-13 and deport them without legal procedure. And yet, Noem continued insisting her own belief, her own internal determination, outweighs the judiciary. She claimed the courts were wrong, that she was right, and that due process had been served even though the Supreme Court explicitly ruled the opposite. Gleeman kept pressing. If she truly believes her allegations, she should welcome due process because the evidence would stand. But instead, Noem refused to commit to complying with the ruling, refused to take steps to return Abrego Garcia, refused to follow the instructions of the court, and refused to acknowledge the legal authority of the judiciary. And that was the core of Gleeman's point. This isn't about one individual, or one deportation, or one allegation. This is about whether the executive branch believes it is above the judiciary. He warned that if the Secretary of Homeland Security can ignore a Supreme Court order, then the rule of law is no longer rule at all. It becomes suggestion. He reminded the committee that the Constitution does not give cabinet secretaries the power to decide who deserves rights and who doesn't, who gets due process and who doesn't, who is a criminal based on their personal assessment rather than legal fact. And when Noem implied that advocating for due process meant fighting for terrorists, Gleeman made the most important point of the day. He was not defending a person. He was defending the Constitution. The right to due process is the cornerstone of American law, and the very thing that separates a democracy from authoritarian rule. Watching Noem dismiss that principle, overtalk federal judges, and prioritize her own judgment over the Supreme Court highlighted exactly why her leadership is under fire. What Gleeman revealed is that this isn't just a policy disagreement, it is a breakdown of constitutional order. And if the executive branch can ignore the courts, then no American, citizen or not, has any guarantee of rights at all.